Automation is really about giving the time back to focus on things that matter and providing more human input, being there for your clients when they need it most in terms of empathy.
The world is your oyster. Once you start thinking about what is the ideal workflow rather than working within the confines of your tool, it really opens things up.
The customers preferred waiting for 9 minutes, knowing that they need to wait for 9 minutes and being constantly updated about the state of the train, rather than waiting for 4 minutes and not knowing when the next train is going to come.
Most law firms really have no idea how productive their people are being. It's more based on how many Slack messages have I gotten today? Does it sound like they're doing something useful? Do I see emails going out?
Can I send them that extra text or that extra email, which will keep them at peace, but also make sure that my paralegal doesn't get a call from them in 2 days? A lot of times these opportunities for kind of asymmetric rewards in terms of low technological effort, but high improvement in client satisfaction.
I feel like most legal tools don't give you a lot of access, especially through no-code means.
Ultimately, if you do want full control, then you do need some of those more open systems, such as Airtable, Zoho, Monday.com.
You've been one to open my eyes that even tools that I had traditionally written off, like Clio Manage, have really robust APIs. So if you know how to work with the API through low-code or no-code tools, you can still get a lot of stuff done. Morning, everybody. Dan Schnurbusch here. Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I'm here with Martin Kravchenko of Automation for Lawyers. He's been a good friend and somebody that I consider genuinely better than myself at these automation and API game. So welcome, Martin.
Thank you for hosting me, and lovely to have this chat.
I want to understand a little more about you and where you came from. How did you even get into this tech world? Tell us a little about your story.
Of course. So I initially started out in the startup world, worked in a range of different startups, one of them even in the biotech space, built in biological pianos where you could touch with different plants and they would make sounds. That was very exciting. But at one point, I discovered all of these automation tools, such as Zapier and Make, and said, oh my God, this is extremely powerful. Even so, I had some coding background. With the power of these no-code tools, you can connect the different systems together and make automation that would free up your admin workload very easily and very quickly as well, iterate upon them, which would be great for small companies who want to move fast and test out new things. Okay, I need to do something with this. And I had to choose a niche. Everybody was saying, okay, you need to niche down your business if you want to open one. You could choose doctors, you could choose lawyers. Doctors probably a bit too complicated, have too many like health data regulations and whatnot.
HIPAA.
And the lawyers actually sound more interesting, and the legal system as well. And the legal system is, in a sense, a bit more related to computer science and programming. It's more kind of codified and structured. And so I always had a bit of fascination around it, especially around like tax law. But I said, okay, let's actually do lawyers. I searched up automationforlawyers.com. It was available. So I said, okay, let's name the company Automation for Lawyers. And so kickstarted the company. First picked up a few gigs from actually a community of other automation experts that I found. Some of them were not from the legal space, but slowly but surely I started gaining ground in this space. Worked for about a year and a half as a freelance consultant. And actually then one of my clients really liked the system that I built for them and decided to offer me a job to join their team in-house. And so I did that. We worked with them for almost 2 years, quickly scaling their firm up to 25 members. That was a very exciting, challenging role. Learned a ton about scaling a boutique firm. And now, since a few months, going back into the game and helping boutique law firms automate their practices with the power of no-code and low-code tools.
Very cool. Let me ask you about that. You, I think, are in that no-code, low-code. You don't do a lot of like raw code custom development, right? As far as I know, that's not really your wheelhouse. Is that fair to say? What do you see as the big advantages and pros and cons of no-code development, low-code development versus like full-blown custom development? Do you think one's better than the other, or does it depend on the circumstances? Give me your ideas there.
Depends on the circumstances. I would say if you are a firm of less than 100 people, custom code solutions probably not needed. And the reason for that is there is such a wide variety of low-code or no-code solutions now available to the market, of also varying complexity. right? So you have Zapier, let's say that's the most popular one, the most straightforward one to use and implement, but also lacking flexibility in certain areas. Anybody can implement that, right? It's quite easy. Just get a trigger, make a few actions, boom, Zap done, right? But you have a wide range of these tools available. So on the other spectrum, for example, you'd have systems such as Zoho and WeWeb, which respectively, one is for the backend, another one is for the front end, where again, with no code or it is just low code, you can build out customer portals, you can build out databases, you can build scalable infrastructure, right? That would work for your firm. And so honestly, especially now as well with the power of AI and a lot of these tools will integrate an AI into their workflows, the barrier to entry into automation has not been lower. I would say definitely custom code is, unless you have a very specific application, or for example, you want to build a very specific mobile app that would be super custom to your firm, then yes, custom code solutions make sense. Otherwise, you're better off looking at low code and no code solutions.
Yeah, I've always thought about it. No code, low code it's quicker to deploy. And like you said, iterate on, like we can get in Zapier or make.com, we can string together 20 different APIs and run data through a complex workflow in one afternoon instead of, I don't know how long that would take in the custom code world. I guess it depends on how good you are and how much you rely on AI, but getting that out and getting it working is a relatively quick process. But like, why should anybody care about this? Like these kind of Zapier make like more custom implementations. There's tools out there like Clio and MyCase and Lawmatics and Locus. And there's a lot of these products out there that are already servicing this market. I know you work a lot in Zoho, for example. Like, why should lawyers care about any of this custom automation stuff and custom integration stuff?
I think two important reasons. First of all, the software that you may be using may not have all the automation and integration capabilities that you would want to design your perfect process. And really as well, when we speak with our clients is we don't try to box ourselves into whatever their software already provides. We try to first see, okay, what would be the ideal business process?
Yeah.
What would be the ideal customer journey that your client would go through in a world where the possibilities are limitless? And then we understand with our expertise with working with all these different tools, Manage, Zoho, whatever, okay, how can we then fit that into the software that you're already using? Or maybe add a few things on top to make it.
Right.
So first of all, for example, Clio Manage is an amazing case management solution, but it really lacks in terms of its automation. That's why by adding Zapier or Make on top of it, you can do things such as send automatic email updates whenever a stage changes, automatically upload in documents from other software that you're using from your e-signature solution. And the second piece being that sometimes the systems that the firm is using just don't communicate with each other. So for example, you can have a CRM, right? And your case management solution. Imagine you use HubSpot and Clio Manage. I actually don't believe that there is a native integration between the two. And so what happens then, if you don't have any automation in place, then your only choice is to manually enter data from one system to another, which is obviously prone to error, obviously consumes your paralegal's time, just like it's inefficient.
I've become completely obsessed with this idea of taking control of especially your back end of your tools, because I feel like most legal tools don't give you a lot of access, especially through no code means. You've been one to open my eyes that even tools that I had traditionally written off, like Clio Manage, have really robust APIs. So if you know how to work with the API through low code or no code tools, you can still get a lot of stuff done, big platforms. But my approach has continually gravitated toward taking control of your backend. So like getting control of your database. What objects are you tracking in your system? Like most tools, it's you got your matter records, you got your contacts and your documents and your tasks. But what if I wanted to track a client's financial assets, which in our estate planning and probate practice, we have to do? Or what if I'm a criminal defense attorney and I want to track witnesses or pieces of evidence as an object in our system connected to a case matter? Most tools, you can't do that, right? I don't think you can do it in Clio or Lawmatics or any of these other things. I know you've managed to get this working well with Zoho and their module system, which I think is really cool. I had no idea the power of Zoho until you started explaining it to me. But that's been my thing, is getting control of your back, because I've had so many friends and people reach out and say, God, it was so expensive to migrate out of a legal tool, because a lot of times they don't give you, your export is in a poorly formatted CSV. And are you actually going to get all your data out? And whereas if you're storing in Airtable or Zoho or something like that, where you have full control over what's in your database, how is it structured, how are you calling it through Make or Zapier or getting your data out. And I've been really impressed with what you can accomplish in that way. Would you agree with that, or what do you think about that?
Absolutely. What we do with our clients as well is we always prefer to keep the software that they're using, because obviously, as you said, migration is not easy, especially if you have a bigger firm, a lot of cases, a lot of ongoing cases. Okay, how is it tradition? Do you use the two systems at the same time? Do you just do overnight shift and then your employees have to scramble a bit to
Yeah.
to learn the new system and its workings? So we obviously always prefer to use the tools that they already have. And here as well, obviously, where comes the power as well of using some of those custom APIs, even with no code and low code tools such as Make and Zapier, right? You can still make custom calls and custom actions that may not be available already as an integration, but are available in the API in general on the tool, right? So we can accommodate for a few scenarios like that. Obviously, adding some extra tools on top, right? For example, maybe don't replace your case management solution. Implement this form software, which will allow you to route respondents or collect more information or have more flexibility in terms of just the client experience. Right? Ultimately, if you do want full control, then you do need some of those more open systems, right? Such as Airtable or Zoho, even for example, Monday.com offers a lot of flexibility. These systems do need more work to set up, but at least I'm very comfortable on board in any of our clients that do those tools, because I know that they do have the flexibility to do whatever thing that they'll want to do 2 years down the line in terms of automation. Of course, everybody has trade-off, but at least it's 90% or 95% would be awesome. Right? But again, it's all about trade-offs and ROI.
Yeah. No, that's completely true. It is all about trade-offs and ROI. And that migration process, like you said, a big pain point. And then you do run into those weird questions of, yeah, exactly. Do we switch quickly or do we run double systems for a while? I don't know that there is a perfect answer there. Yeah, it is. And I want to back up for a minute. When we're talking about APIs, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, we're talking about application programming interfaces. Any cloud platform out there that is a modern tool like Clio, Lawmatics, and Locus, an application programming interface, if you have an open API, what that means is that developers can log on, look at their documentation online that says, if you're outside of our system, you're not even in our tool, you're in some third-party tool. If you want to create a new task in Clio or upload a new document to Clio, but you're not even in Clio, you're in some other tool and you want to pass it in from outside, they have this open system that lets you communicate through software and through code to make that happen. So when we're talking about APIs, that's what we're talking about, is making software talk to each other, making stuff happen in one place when you're doing something wherever you're working. And I want to underline something that Martin said, is that a lot of these tools, Zapier, Make, even if they don't have a native connection, there's layers to it, right? So your software, Clio might integrate with Clio Manage, but it also integrates with Make and Zapier, which open up a whole ecosystem of whatever they integrate with. But they also let you do custom API calls. So you can say, even if a tool's not on Make or on Zapier, we can find ways to communicate with those. The world is your oyster. Once you start thinking about what is the ideal workflow rather than working within the confines of your tool, it really opens things up.
Let's first look at what would be the ideal experience in terms of the business process, the market, and then only let's find the tools that fit into.
Yeah, I have felt like ever since we moved into taking more control over our system in Airtable, and I want to emphasize, you could do it in a whole variety of different tools. Airtable is just one way of doing it. But I feel like shiny object syndrome has gone down a lot. I'm not nearly as worried about what the next new cool legal tech tool is, because even if they have a feature that I'm like, oh, I'll just go find a random API software out there somewhere and integrate it into our new system. A couple months ago, we added faxing to our Airtable system. I wanted to be able to click send faxes, and I was jealous of FileVine and some of the others. And I was like, let's go see if we can find a faxing API. And sure enough, there's one online for pennies a fax. You can fax directly out of your Airtable platform once you set it up. So I was like, well, no more shiny object syndrome. It's pretty nice.
I think it's about modularity in a sense, right? Being able to have your base, let's say an Airtable, and then be able to just add more stuff on top of it as you need it, instead of trying to find one tool that rules them all.
Yeah. I want to circle back. You went in-house for a while. I want to talk generally about this concept of having an automation or a tech expert in-house at a law firm, or at least working very tightly with a firm. Um, do you think that's necessary? Why is it helpful to have somebody who knows tech and automation, like closely connected with the law firm in that way? What do you see as the advantages there?
Definitely say that it is necessary if you want to achieve real operational and client quality, client service quality excellence. And the reason for that is that as a boutique firm, which you are imagining going from 5, 10, 20 people even, you are constantly changing, right? You are trying out new things in terms of marketing, in terms of client acquisition, because the strategy that worked for you, for example, when you are 5 people, imagine referrals, now does it work? Now you need to do, let's say, run ads, right? Or you need to add some more marketing tactics on top of it. And same is happening with in terms of the actual service that you provided. What's interesting is that the firm that I worked with closely for the last 2 years has a very specific niche service, but in the employment law space. But still, what surprised me a lot was even after 2 years, we still find features daily that can be added, right? Daily or weekly. We still find things that can be optimized. We still find things that can be adjusted. Okay, let's get another analytics dashboard here. Okay, let's add another automation here. Okay, like this process here is a bit clunky. Let's optimize it a bit more. And so that's why as well, what we prefer doing is instead of just doing a one-off automation, we really prefer to work with firms on a more holistic level, going to the basics of the business, going to the basics of the customer journey, and really seeing, okay, what is the full potential, right? How much can we build? And we also understand that the build system that we built 6 months ago will probably be already outdated to a certain extent. And so some adjustments will be needed.
Yeah, I totally agree. In my law practice, automation first approach from the very beginning, I started with this kind of fantasy that you could create a fully automated law firm. And I think for some law firms that may be true, but it is not true for what we do. And I think that's good in a way, because so much of law is about stuff that's really important to people's lives. And it's easy to forget that when you're doing it every day, like how a lot of the stuff that we do as attorneys, how influential it can be over that person's life. If it's criminal defense or they're trying to fight over a state issue or get justice for an injury or whatever it is, it's a really big deal. And so removing the human element entirely is probably not a good idea. But what we found is that through automation, we've been able to see a higher level of human interaction because we don't have to spend as much time drafting pleadings, writing letters, or sending status updates. So instead, what we're doing is spending a lot more time like talking with clients on the phone and answering their questions, assuaging their fears about stuff and kind of making them feel heard and well taken care of. And I think to me, that's one of the huge powers of a well-automated system is just how much time it gives you back to be present for whatever you need to be present for, if it's your clients, if it's your family. Have you seen that in your experience working, especially working in-house or working with your clients?
Absolutely. And really, automation is not about trying to automate all the practice and just going on a beach and with your pina colada, right? Automation is really about giving the time back to focus on things that matter and providing, as you said, more human input, being there for your clients when they need it most in terms of empathy, especially now with things such as AI. Ultimately, I think 10 years down the line, a lot of this agreements and contracts will be able to be drafted by AI software, at least largely drafted by AI software. Still so, the people will want to talk with people and they will want to feel heard and they will want to feel taken care of. And that's what we found as well, both with this firm and the other firms we worked with, is given the time back, those clients, for example, that do need a bit more care, right, can be taken care of. Is the difference between not getting a review and getting a 5-star review where they say that's the best legal experience they had in their life. That is what it takes to get to that level. And you simply, if you're just bogged down in all this admin stuff, you're not able to get there.
Yeah, I completely agree. So Let's dial in on a more specific topic. You had mentioned that you've done some interesting things with productivity tracking, a couple of different philosophies to how to track what you should track and how do we measure productivity and care about it in our software and what do we do with that. I'd be interested in getting your thoughts and opinions on that concept of tracking productivity in general and then automating that tracking and what can we do with it once we know that information.
Absolutely. So in terms of two major philosophies that at least I see it now in my head are productivity tracking by tracking the time, and second being by objectives, right? Okay. How many tasks I actually completed, how many objectives I actually. And so in the first category, in terms of just pure time tracking, there is as well a lot of software in the market that you can either install in your browser or you can install on your desktop, which would log the time that employees spend in different, for example, apps, right? You can even do things such as take periodic screenshots every 5 to 10 to 15 minutes. What is being done on the employees'
I hope
computer.
nobody ever does that.
But anyway, that's possible, right? Just explain the range of possibilities here. And then the second one is the management by objectives, which I prefer. If you have proper systems in place and proper, let's say, data structures and pipelines, you are able to then understand what type of tasks are people completing and how long is it taken for them to complete those tasks. And so here is where you can become a bit more creative with how you implement this, right? Because obviously all the different case management systems have tasks, right? But then, for example, analyzing the different categories of tasks by average completion time, by different employees, for example, to see who is more productive on this particular category can become more challenging, right? Because a lot of times then these tools don't have the native capabilities in terms of analytics to be able to perform those kind of dashboards and reports. So that's where you can become a bit more creative and connect it to different tools, again, through the API. You can connect it to different tools where you would extract that information, let's say, on a daily basis. One such tool is, for example, Zapier. You'd extract that information on a daily basis into a more general database, for example, Google BigQuery. And then you'll be able to run reports on that data, be that even in a simple Excel or in a more complex analytics solution such as Google Looker Studio or, for example, Power BI or Tableau, right? You'll be able to run any kind of reports that you want once you have the raw data, right? So step one is get data out of the system that you're using. Actually, no. So step one is properly categorize all tasks. And that could be, so for example, just the naming convention. Imagine that a case stage changes stage in your CRM or like in your case management system. And then you have an automation linked to that stage change, which would create 3 different tasks. Right? For example, draft agreement, I don't know, approve agreement, send agreement for your signature. And they will have a standard naming convention. Or if the software permits, then you can add a label on top of them, right? Well, which is already predefined. Now, once you have that, you have proper data in your system, then you can extract the data, again, using a tool like Zapier or custom integration. And then you'll be able to run reports, step 3, right, on the data to understand those insights. And in terms of what actionable insights can be derived from that, a lot of, I think, firms, especially now in the remote era, don't really know how productive their employees are, right? Because the firm operations are a bit of a mess. You never really know who is working on what, right? You don't really have a clear, defined structure in terms of the business process, right? You don't have those tasks logged properly in your case management system. And obviously, then you don't have the proper analytics. Now, if you do build out this process, then you can understand, okay, employee A is completing this task in 10 minutes. Employee B is completing this task in 5 minutes. You probably will need to train a bit more employee A on this task, right? Or for example, employee A completed 20 tasks today, employee B completed 50. Why is it different? Right? Once you have all the data, you can actually understand who is working and how productively they are working, and also provide better training to your team. Because the team members themselves, with no bad intentions, they may not understand that they're doing some part of the process inefficiently or that there's a better way, right? Maybe they have never been taught, right? You didn't have those guides in place when they started, whatever, right? They just got used to a certain way of doing things. If you want to really improve, then you need to have that data. Otherwise, you cannot make business decisions.
Yeah, I know. I think that's really powerful. We're able to do a little bit of that. Here's props for Airtable is that you can track a lot of that in the native records and then dashboard it within the platform. I don't know if it's probably not as powerful as Google Looker Studio and all that, but it is pretty nice to have it in one place. Very cool, very powerful stuff. And I think you're absolutely right. I think most law firms really have no idea how productive their people are being. It's more based on how many Slack messages have I gotten today? Does it sound like they're doing something useful? Do I see emails going out? But that's not always the best metric of important things actually being done and moving the needle. It's an area of interest of mine too, getting our reporting better on that. I agree with you. I think it is one thing that we experimented with a little bit. I ended up breaking it because I switched our whole operations platform. You had mentioned the difficulties of switching platforms earlier, and we've done that several times. And we had a sequence, an automation at one point where when certain important tasks were being completed, we used a tool called Bonusly, Bonusly, which is an interesting software. It basically creates a credit system for your firm where people can give each other points when they do something great, or you can automate people getting points when they accomplish certain tasks. And then with the points, you can take it into this kind of a marketplace that you set up for your firm where they can trade it in for an Amazon gift card or a fruit basket or whatever they want. Or if you save up enough points, you can get a vacation. It's just an interesting way. And they had a cool API. And so I set it up a while back and people would get like automated bonus points whenever they would accomplish certain types of tasks. It was a little bit like gamification and you feel a little strange about it. Are we like mouse with cheese? But at the same time, if people like it and it works, maybe that's a good idea. I don't know. Have you ever experimented with anything like that?
Definitely, that's possible. We have implemented some basic versions of that in terms of just top performer of the month and whatnot. And obviously, you do need to have your base in terms of proper culture and HR in place, right?
Sure.
Before you do those things, this is not a silver bullet, but definitely this can add an extra layer of motivation on top. This gamification element is, okay, how can I actually do more tasks? How can I win this week's leaderboard? Another important thing to have in mind when you're implementing any of this is to actually maintain consistent high level service quality, right? Because you don't want to have a situation where your employees are just chasing all these rewards. That's why you really need to have QA, right? Quality assurance and other systems in place to make sure that the service quality doesn't slip. And as long as you have those, then obviously this can be a very great.
No, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to incentivize the wrong stuff or over incentivize to the detriment of other things that matter or things that are harder to track. Because to measure like how quickly did you respond to this client's concern and did you express the right, were you empathetic or were you dismissive? And I got to get back to my task that's going to get me an Amazon gift card. So yeah, having culture and all that is definitely a big piece of it too. So you've talked a lot about the importance.
So, and that's why as well, it's important to not just automate for the automation's sake. It's really important to base yourself in the correct business decisions. And I think that's where a lot of automation consultants fall short. If I'm just building this out, like this client came to me, they say they want this. Okay, I build this for them, I forget about it. That's really not the best approach because you also need to understand a bit, maybe this client has a great idea, but let's actually make sure that it's based in good business decisions, in proper ROI, and then implement that automation solution, right? It needs a bit more of a holistic view to actually make a significant change in your business.
One of the dangers of automation is that you can automate almost anything, and sometimes it's not a good idea, right? Maybe what you automated doesn't work every time. Maybe you spent thousands of dollars automating it, and it's only saving you 10 seconds a year in an extreme case. I know I can attest, I have definitely automated stuff that probably did not need to be automated, but it was fun. There's a certain fun in the challenge.
We've all been there.
So but to me though, in my defense, I think there is and to your point, it's not just about time savings though, like saving mistakes. And as long as it's serving a business purpose, is it really driving value? It's starting with the most impactful things in terms of client experience or efficiency and productivity and profitability. Is it actually moving the needle on that stuff? I think that's definitely an important way to contextualize how you're thinking about automation. So I want to talk more about this really interesting study about the London Underground and what the implications are of automation technology for lawyers, how we interact with our clients. Can you tell us again about that study and what do you think are the takeaways for law firms?
Yeah, so it's extremely interesting. I saw this originally in a video from Rory Sutherland. He is a popular ad specialist. And he was talking about the case of the London Underground, which was trying to improve client experience. What they realized is that the biggest change that they could make to improve client experience is reducing the anxiety experienced by the customer. So they experimented with running faster trains, with running more frequent trains. But what really made the difference is installing dot matrix displays on top of the platform that indicated when the next train is going to come. And so the crazy thing is that the customers preferred waiting for 9 minutes, knowing that they need to wait for 9 minutes and being constantly updated about the state of the train, rather than waiting for 4 minutes and not knowing when the next train is going to come. And it's extremely applicable to the use case of law firms, because obviously a lot of times our clients are going through tough life situations, right? And experiencing high anxiety. And so what this means is that by implementing simple techniques such as automatic client updates, frequent client updates, or even, for example, implementing a customer portal where they can log in and see the status of their case and the latest updates, can be more beneficial to the actual customer journey and customer experience than building some crazy automation on the back end, which will automate your drafting, right? A lot of times it's not about crazy speeds or crazy high output. It's about just keeping your client updated. Simple things, which obviously can be automated with this tool.
Yeah, I just find that study because it peek into human psychology, and there's something about that uncertainty that makes people uncomfortable, provides a yucky feeling. We just don't know what is happening or what is coming down and what to expect. There's something about human psychology. We like to have things in conformity with our expectations. So if you can set those expectations up front or as you go, it seems like that can make a huge difference. And we've noticed that in our firm too. When I first started doing probate administration, I hadn't done a ton of them yet. I didn't know exactly how long things were going to take. I wasn't giving a great idea for people of what to expect. And we'd be 8 months down the line and people would be like, are we done yet? Now we know about how long the process is going to take and how long it has to take. And we prime them up front. Buckle up. We're going to be here for a while. And nowadays they get emails each stage and each major thing that happens when the court grants their probate letters of administration. Our system detects it via AI and they get an automated email that's, hey, your letters have been granted. Here's what to expect next. In the next 30 days, we've got to do this. And it cuts down a lot on questions. It's been a while since we've had an angry client, which is nice. I love that study. I'm so glad that you mentioned that and the implications that it has for firms and client satisfaction is keep them updated. What are your favorite ways or tools keeping clients up to speed on the status of a case? What do you think is the best way to do that?
I would say that the most straightforward way is, okay, just email, SMS. You can even automate physical mail letters. However, to properly be able to achieve that, you need to make sure that your system has a good process, right? So that if you do have those multiple stages that the case does go through, that is clearly delineated in the system. And so then you can trigger automations based on top of that, which will automatically send something to them, right? For example, document drafted, that's one stage. Document in review, that's another stage. Document sent for signature, that's another stage. Document signed, etc., 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 right? If you have those in place, then you can enable these automatic updates and make sure that none of your clients are left in the dark. An important point to mention as well would be that you need to set clear expectations, but then follow through with your promises. That's more for kind of business process design and training, but making sure if one of your staff members tells the client, okay, I'm going to get back to you in the next week, create a task in the case management system, right? Make sure that task is completed. Review those tasks regularly every week to make sure that nothing fell through the cracks because one employee went on leave and everybody forgot about it. A bit less technical, as technology is part of it, but more just proper business management comes into place.
Yeah. Another thing that we were talking about in terms of keeping clients up to date and up to speed and communicated with was the concept of a client portal I know there are differing views on the use of client portals and when they're appropriate. How do you think about, for attorneys, different practice areas? Like, when is creating and actually using a client portal? Because it's one thing to create it, but actually make sure the data is going into it. And do we enforce it with the client? In what situations do you think that client portals make the most sense, as opposed to, like you said, just simple text messages and emails?
Right. It's not only about your firm using it, but also about the client engagement. If your client doesn't use the customer portal that you built, then you don't need a customer
Right.
portal, right? I think ultimately it becomes to the frequency of communications that you have with client, especially two-way communication, where you need to request something, get back to you with something, the continuous loop. In those practice areas, yes, client portal can be very useful. You can build something custom. You can build something with tools such as case status, which integrate directly into a lot of big case management solutions. Now, in other areas where client updates are less frequent, or where just one-way client updates, you're just saying, okay, we have started processing, okay, the process is now filed, whatever, right? In those areas, a bit less useful and can be more of a hassle, right? Again, ultimately is, do you actually need it? Does your customer actually need it? If it's simple emails, you can automate that. Text messages as well, postal as well, right? Do you need this two-way communication, frequent communication? For example, continuous exchange of documents, then yes, it does make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that's how I've been thinking about it too. Because I know we'd thought about, do we need a client portal for our estate planning practice or our probate practice? And what I found is that nobody really used the portal that we had. It was through Lawmatics, and nothing against Lawmatics. It's just that in our practice area, nobody really used it. They didn't need to log in because we only met a handful of times throughout the engagement. And 99% of the information that we were getting from them, we were getting on the initial intake form. And there wasn't a whole lot of need for back and forth. And most of our clients were older anyway. Asking them to set up and log into a portal on a repeat basis was not really realistic. On the other end, though, in our probate practice, we've been working a lot with some national injury firms who are tracking 40 cases they have open with us, and they need to know, what's the status of this case? Have letters of administration been issued yet? And so through Softer, we built a front end portal for our Airtable base. They can see all of their cases that they have referred to us. And we have a property in our Airtable base that just tracks the URL to their letters of administration in our Google Drive account. We can upload the document, and they can just log in, see the letters, download it. They don't have to send us emails for each case trying to figure out what's going on. They can just log in, see their 40 cases and what the status is for all of them and whether they've issued. In that case, it's worked super well. And we've gotten a lot of really good positive feedback on that from those kind of clients. But to your point, it just entirely depends on the workflow, the experience, the level of two-way communication.
Good point that you mentioned there is, obviously, if you have cases like this, I would imagine for business law and contract law as well, that would be applicable. Imagine you have a company that you're working with constantly creating new trucks, drafting new contracts, doing red lines. In that case, for example, it can be very useful because then the client and yourself can get lost in all the emails that you're sending back and forth with all the updates and all the finalized documents. In that case, it does make sense to build out a client portal because then, as you said, the client just logs in, they see all the statuses, they can download, they can go back in time to 6 months back, download the document that you prepared for them a while back without having to bother you, and obviously use up as well your team's time.
All right. We're coming up on time, so let's transition. Every week we ask ourselves and our guests what our technology tip of the week is. I will go first. I started using ChatGPT. What I was running into is I'd want to know, is there a software that does this, or is there an API connector that can do this? And Google was not always finding what I was looking for. Whereas if you're on ChatGPT and you just describe what you're trying to find, I needed software that can do this function. And then it'll spit out a list of tools. But sometimes it's really helpful, and it'll bring awareness to solving particular problems that you may not have even known that this tool or even category of tools exists. Like, I didn't even know up until a year ago, I didn't even know that like business dashboarding software existed, like Gecko Board and stuff, where you can actually pull data out into third-party tools. But there's this whole like product class of software out there just for business analytics dashboarding. And it was ChatGPT, I think, that introduced me to that. So get comfy with AI and asking those kind of granular, can it do this kind of questions? It may not be perfect, but it'll put you in the right direction. So that's my tip of the week. What about you, Martin?
Back to this case study of the London Underground and really invite everyone to look for those quick wins that may not necessarily be very technologically complex, but that can drastically improve the client experience, right? So look at your process and see, okay, where can I keep my client updated? Where can I send them that extra text or that extra email, which will keep them at peace, but also make sure that my paralegal doesn't get a call from them in 2 days, all right? A lot of times, again, there are these opportunities for kind of asymmetric rewards in terms of low technological effort, but high improvement in client satisfaction. And so definitely tag those first.
Very good. All right, Martin, Automation for Lawyers is your legal tech agency. How can people get in touch with you?
I'd say the best two ways are either LinkedIn, so Martin Kravchenko, or automationforlawyers.com.
Thank you, Martin. It was a pleasure speaking this morning. Thanks for coming on the show. If you want to take this conversation offline, or if you have questions about automation or technology, Martin and I are active in the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group. Join the group, come chat, share your experiences, and learn more about legal tech and automation. No matter where you're listening, leave us a 5-star review on the show so that more people can find us and learn more about legal tech and automation. That is it for this week. Thanks again, Martin. Until next time.
Yeah.